Hello and welcome to Powered by Intuition. Yes, this is a late night episode. I am much later than I normally am. Today has been a day. Everybody just like piled on. I had to drop one of my gigs today. So that kind of gives you an idea of how it's been. So it's just been back to back nonstop. Did take a little break on going to Erewhon. I know nobody likes to hear that outside of LA. And even with LA, it's kind of a running joke. But the food is good there. I love Erewhon. It's my guilty pleasure. So yeah, had like a little break doing that, and then it was just nonstop since like 6 a.m. this morning. So I'm finally getting on now. And no, I did not pre-plan this. This is like completely off the cuff. Usually I'll kind of like tap in a little earlier and be like, here's what's coming up. But there's multiple things that are coming up. And so I will be addressing kind of all these little different nuanced things. And I didn't have the time to like sit down and really just kind of feel what's the connecting factor between all of these different things that are happening. And here we are, completely unscripted. So starting with this weekend, I hear there's going to be costume parties all over the place. So make sure that you get your costume. Make sure you dress appropriately. Make sure you bring the appropriate things with you to ensure safe trick-or-treating. Also bring some candy with you. You never know what might happen. Maybe there will be some trick-or-treaters that need some candy. So that's always a fun thing to do, especially at Halloween dance parties. If you know, you know. So come prepared for that, because that's what it sounds like. It's going to be a Halloween dance party. Bring candy. And bring all sorts of things that you need to keep yourself safe during whatever situation might happen. Sometimes at these events, there are people that just like to cause trouble. And be aware of that. Be prepared. Have a game plan with friends. I don't suggest bringing your phones because people like to, steal those things. So I'd say bring a phone that you're not going to worry about getting lost or stolen. Make sure you coordinate with friends and make sure you coordinate with people that you care about accordingly. So those are a few things that I can say about the situation. And of course, there's going to be people that want to live stream, and there's a lovely trail cam that is on sale on multiple areas that you can use right now. Hey, Ivan, thank you for joining in. Great to see you online. So coming up more about the costume party that's happening. Of course, this is a little coded. Wah. I'm sure people will figure it out. But just make sure when you do an activity that you take a moment to create a checklist. Take a moment to really think about the situation. Think about what you may need. Like if you're going to Burning Man, you're going to want to bring a certain substance if people OD. So be prepared for those instances, because you need to know what you're going into. You need to consider consequences. You need to consider a backup plan. Plan A, B, C, D, B, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Have all those plans. Coordinate with people. Coordinate with, how are you going to get there? How are you going to leave? Do you have, a way to contact people? Maybe it's a walkie-talkie. Maybe you have one of those little live stream camera things. All sorts of different options that you can do to make it a fun and enjoyable event and experience. So, see, Ivan said crazy. Yes, yes, yes. So, be prepared. And that isn't just isolated to specific events. Preparedness is a way of doing life. For example, and I've probably brought this up before, but when COVID started happening, when people were like, oh, yeah, there's this weird thing happening in China. And I was like, okay, well, not much information comes from China at that point. Not much information did. That, of course, is changed now with different platforms and stuff. But that was like, okay, red flag number one. Number two, like the reports were varying widely. And I was like, huh, you know, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to start boosting my immune system. I'm going to ensure that my daughter does. And we're just going to kind of pay attention to this. And that was what was it? Like late November before. Yes, it was like late November when I had initially heard of it. And then by December was when I started boosting my immune system. And then, of course, in March, all heck broke loose. And we know what happened with that. So preparedness is a way of life. You need to consider what's the worst that can happen and be prepared for it, right? Oftentimes, when you're prepared for the worst that can happen, the things don't end up being that. Okay. So as long as you are prepared, as long as you are like ready for whatever comes, you can handle it and you can handle it effectively. And that is why with the resilience journal that I created, there is a specific section dedicated to emergency preparedness. And, that reflection came up again during the big fires that happened out here. And, this obviously, it's something that I need to work on. It's something that we all need to work on. It's a work in progress and it's a practice of life, right? Having resources available, preparing, planning, like today was the earthquake drill or whatnot for the school system. So knowing all of that stuff, knowing preparedness, like just be ready for what may come. So there's that aspect. The other aspect is this phenomenon of the double speak. I'm going to call it the double speak, but it's it's turns of phrase that are meant to derail you. It's like dancing around the subject, but not really pinpointing it. And I observe this a lot. And I've done it myself too, where it's like people will do this thing where they want to protect another. And that's not really going to work out in the best way, right? Like if you spend your life trying to protect someone, they're not going to know how to protect themselves. They're not going to know how to navigate situations, what happens when you're not there, right? But oftentimes, even when you're not there, they're going to know how to navigate these things and they'll figure it out. Often, not always. So oftentimes it's like energy that's just extended, it's babying, it's infantilizing, and oftentimes it's not necessary. So that is something to consider. What is coming up for me right now, that's really important. Karma's coming quick this year. So do your best to keep your hands clean. And I think I mentioned it earlier this year on a different podcast, on a different show. But karma's coming quick this year. There's a lot of people that like to evade karma. Or do their best to. Like they'll go to the ends of the earth to avoid dealing with that. But I don't think people are able to truly run from it by the end of this year. And you'll see things like it could just be small things. But I have noticed that even though there is the guise and the ruse and the uh, masking that things are going well for those who cause harm, it's paper thin, if you know what I mean. Like they're putting on a front. It's not real. So be aware of that. Be aware that karma is coming quick this year. And one of the things that, I say is karma's a bitch, so I don't have to be. So there is that. So coming back to the turns of phrase that I've seen quite frequently, it's the things like, I'm going to use this one because it's just been so prevalent and the people who love to use this, I just love to show how inept and just lacking cognitive understanding this is. But the people who are anti-woke. And I know that woke has been distorted to mean something else. But our words, and you'll hear people say this, words are kind of spells, right? If you're not mindful about what you're saying, if you don't really take into account to think about it and consider it, you could be unintentionally causing yourself problems. And case in point is the crowd that is anti-woke, which means like woke is a variant of wake or awaken, right? It's alerted to systemic issues, to those sorts of things, like to humanitarian issues, to injustices. It's being aware of these situations, of what's not working within our society, of the harms that are perpetuated within our society. Supporting disabled people in our society, those sorts of things, being aware of it, social justice. All right. And so the actual core of the word is awake. You are woke. You're awake, right? You are awaken. You have woken up, those sorts of things. So if you are anti-woke, what does that mean if you were to sum it up in one word? It means you're asleep. If you're anti-woke, you are fighting for being asleep. You're fighting for blinders. You are fighting for being plugged into the matrix and not having your life disrupted, right? You are fighting for that, being a sheeple, for lack of a better word. So if you are anti-woke, if you are actually asleep or a sleeper, and thank you so much for the gifts. I see I got a gift. So if you are a sleeper, there's a word that follows up to that. And you can see those behaviors being enacted in various different ways. So it's the cell within that situation. So that is something to really consider. Your words, what you say, these turns of phrase that are directly being used against you in a psychological way to manipulate you and bring you into a state that actually doesn't support you. So anti-woke means asleep, right? If you're not awake, you're asleep. And that is by design. That is by design. It even tricks your subconscious, even if you're not conscious of it. It's not in your conscious mind of going, wait a second, I don't like this phrase. Why would I want to be asleep? So be mindful of that. Be mindful of these things. Be mindful of dancing around a subject. Be mindful of not putting an apt term on a situation. And another example of this is, you know, seeing someone being gaslit. And I called it out. I'm not going to sit there and be like, no, this is messed up. It's not okay. I've been gaslit myself. I'm not going to endure or sit back and let the bystander effect, which I covered a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to let the bystander effect overcome my sense of values. I'm not going to let it overcome my value system. If there is something that is an injustice or not working, I'm going to say it. I'm going to speak it in that space. I'm going to call it out for what it is. And so I did that. And this individual was like, and I used the term, I was like, this is gaslighting. That is not cool. As I, stood up for someone that could not really effectively speak up for themselves. And the person turned around and was like, I don't use that phrase in my household. And I'm like, that's why it's persisting, because you're not calling out what's in the space, and I'm not going to protect you from that. You might not use it, but you sure as heck know that you are doing it, because I'm not going to step back and let this continue to happen. So deal with these situations. Use the heavy terms, no matter if it's hard. It's going to be hard for people to use those terms, but I can no longer tolerate seeing people gloss over, dance around, make excuses for these situations. And that's something that I've definitely been checking myself on this week, is like, am I making an excuse for this situation? And, one of the current events is the whole Taylor Swift thing. But not a fan of that individual. So I'm not surprised, considering demographics, social status, and that sort of thing. Like, yeah, she said stuff, but you have to look at the results of what someone actually does. And that's part of the doublespeak BS, where it's like, oh yeah, we're doing this and helping out this. And then you really look at the results and it's totally hyped, hyped to proportions, or it's completely counter. Red is blue and like the sky is pink, or, those sorts of things, which are typical narcissistic tendencies. There's even a situation going on where someone is said some nasty things and then totally renounced saying it because they didn't say it directly. They said it indirectly. And to put a point on this, they're like, oh, your ancestors were cowards and it shows because you act exactly like them, which is indicative of being called a coward, right? And then when people called that content creator out on that, that content creator was like, I didn't call people cowards. That creator did, just not directly. And so they feel like they can wash their hands clean of it. Which harkens me back to karma's coming quick this year. So keep your hands clean. And that doesn't mean let the bystander effect overtake you. If you need to step up to support someone, help them, defend them, from something that is truly an injustice, do so. Be prepared for what comes of that. Know your situation and your surroundings, and only pick battles that you know that you have the skill set to win. And this is tagged along with preparedness, right? You have to choose your battles. You have to choose the information. Let me put it this way. You don't have to, but it's time to choose the situations that you can handle. And it's time to really look at them for what they are. Like there's a nonprofit organization, and I'm going to wrap it up with this. A lot of nonprofit organizations are tax shelters for wealthy people. The most successful ones are tax shelters for wealthy people. Okay. So when there's one that is putting up people and specific people, setting them up to go after a person who has nothing to really do with the situation, had no credible authority over it, but was in a position of authority, and that person is being attacked or demeaned when actual people who are causing the problems, who have a hand in it, who have a say in it, who have the authority to manage it to a degree, are not getting as much flack. And when I looked up the organization backing that, it was very surprising, because it really makes the crowd that they're supposedly defending look bad, because they're doing things that go counter to the result that they are saying they're trying to create. Actions speak louder than words, right? And it's interesting looking at the people who co-own and manage that operation. Do not go into things blindly anymore. The uncanny valley is here with AI. And there's a lot of people doing insidious and sinister dealings. Some people have been well accustomed to that. It's not something that a lot of people have called out. It's not something that a lot of people are very mindful or able to navigate, because it is manipulative. It is manipulation. But it's time for people to kind of start understanding these situations, start looking at, well, what brought us here? What were my choices? Why did I make those choices? What did I hear? Was it peer pressure? Was it, this sounded great, but then everything went backwards? But you have to look at, like, why did I trust this person in the first place? Did I take the time to research this person and actually understand what they are about and who they actually are? So coming back to that one creator that called people cowards, once again, I'm not surprised, because when a person tells you who they are, believe them. And a lot of people tend to out themselves via their screen names. And this person's screen name puts the harm in a word that doesn't mean harm at all. It means the opposite of harm. It says a lot about that person, doesn't it? A lot about those double standards, and a lot about what they intend. So when people tell you who they are or show you who they are, it's time to start believing them. And yes, we can give people grace. We can give people chances. We can give people, and here's how I set it up. It's like a buffer zone, right? So if you know someone's not dating worthy, don't date them. If you know that someone gets catty out of the blue because, something's not working in their life. It's like, understand who they are, give them that buffer zone and space. So now that that person is out of themselves, it's like, yeah, I wasn't even following that person to begin with, but I had seen their content come up. And it's like, well, look at the screen name. I'm not surprised. So within these situations, just be mindful, be present, be prepared. And I think that's how I'm going to sum up tonight. So thank you for joining in. And yeah, sorry about the late night and the craziness, but it happens. And I am just happy that I'm able to commit to doing this on a weekly basis. So I forgot to also lead in, if you are listening to this any day like this, I do talk about current events, but these teachings, this wisdom, what comes through is something that can serve your life. So wherever you are at right now, whenever you are listening to this or watching this, there probably is something in this for you. So I would love to hear that. If you want to post in the comments, if you're on the tube, let me know what kind of resonated with you on this and what you took from it. All right. So thank you for joining in and have a good night. Bye, everybody.